Joining the dispatch ahead of the Pro League play-in, I've got CWL commentator and analyst, front page Reddit star, my good buddy Chance. Chance, how were the holidays for you?
Awful, because I have a giant family. My mom is one of 13, so I have 30 some odd cousins, and all of them called me Pot Guy just because of the Reddit posts. So that is my new nickname.
I get it. Okay, I was like, maybe there's some random alternative that I don't know behind the scenes, but
no, it was the meme. My family found the meme independently. I did not share it with them, and now that's what I'm known as. So it was terrible.
That's the thing. Like, people kind of immediately see stardom, and everyone thinks, "Wow, that's amazing." But you've kind of experienced it, and you're like, "Well, hey, I've been on Reddit. I've been on the front page." And has there been more positives than negatives, or has it been vice versa for the Reddit fame?
It has literally only been negatives. That's it. I take that back. I gained a lot of Twitter followers, which is supposed to be nice, but I don't really care. So yeah, all negatives, Landon. If you can find a way to take all of that down and delete the GIFs and the memes, I would appreciate that. But
I'll do my best. I'm not sure if that's possible, but
no, it's not. It's over. It's in the past.
Well, hey, it's a new year, right? We're heading into 2019. Things are different. New, new year, new me type thing for Chance possibly, but
nope, same old.
Yeah, same old. But I want to talk about, obviously, the first event of 2019 for the CWL Pro League, right? We got the Pro League play-in, but more specifically, I want to talk to you about Pool C, kind of listing off a few of the rosters that we're going to be having competing at this particular tournament. It's going to be Space Lee's team, 100 Thieves, Pittsburgh Knights, Accelerate Gaming, Midnight Esports, Overtime, and Mazer Gaming. Do you think this one has the ability to be close here, Chance, or do you think it's going to be more top-heavy, like what a lot of the community starts to think?
I think it'll be fairly close. Like, I think straight ripping 100 Thieves would be the expected 1-2, and most people would say Pittsburgh Knights have the upset potential to maybe take over 100 Thieves, who haven't looked as good as they should. But I think it goes further than that, because Accelerate are also a very good team that are capable of not only beating Pittsburgh Knights, but like they 3-0'd EG, I'm pretty sure. Or I don't know if it's Accelerate. Yeah, something like that. They have good wins under their belt. They've had close maps against some of the top teams. So if they show up and just have one good day, if they score one against either 100 Thieves or straight ripping, they could at the very least be play spoiler. They could play spoiler to one of those top three teams to eliminate them from the top two to force them into the double bracket. But after that, I don't have too high of expectations for Midnight, Overtime or Mazer. Like, there's potential there. Like, they're all good teams, but I'm just straight up expecting straight ripping 100 Thieves and Pittsburgh Knights to just be a clear step ahead.
Well, let's talk about 100T, right? Because they automatically, because of the brand that they have, the support that they have behind them, they have the biggest fan base coming into this particular pool, and probably one of the most in the entire, esport. But they've recently made a role change. Obviously, Kenny has gone from Maddox now to SOG, even though many thought he should have been running the SOG off the start. Regardless, there have been many talks of internal issues with 100 Thieves, the factor of them not streaming scrims for a while because of the internal problems that they were having. There's been YouTube videos that have hundreds of thousands of views on them of just straight up 100 Thieves arguments. And I think after watching these arguments take place, there has never been a more designated IGL on a team ever before, I think, than Enable is right now for the roster. But I am worried about this team working together. I think Enable is doing all that he can, but I think he almost might need another IGL to try to maintain the way that the team has been working together so far. Do you have any specific worries from 100T, and do you think it could be possibly the internal problems that they have been facing as of late?
Well, okay, the purpose of this tournament is purely just to qualify for the Pro League. Like, the money that's on the line is only the money that you get when you enter the Pro League. And I have next to no fear of 100 Thieves not making it in. Like, they didn't have a great performance at Vegas at all, not by their standards, not by a Pro League team standard, because they were only top 12, and that doesn't break the top 8 barrier to be better than half the Pro League teams. But even if they are as bad as they were at Vegas, if they didn't make many improvements, they still should be able to squeak by and make the Pro League, which is fine. And that's worst case scenario. And you look at these 5 players, make the role swap, have an extra in-game leader to help, cool the egos, whatever it might be. If any little bit can help them just improve even slightly, which again, ridiculously talented, you expect them to improve at least individually, it's going to carry over. They're going to make the Pro League without too much issue. So I personally don't have a fear. I'm not saying that that means when the next event at Fort Worth comes out that they're going to be a top team, like top 4 or whatever. That could happen, but I don't know. But purposes make the pro league, they're going to be just fine.
Yeah, for the record, I absolutely agree. Like when you look at the talent, and to a point, like when it comes down to a regular tournament, we're talking about pool play. Can they, like I said, Fort Worth, for example, can they come out? That's a different story and win that tournament. That's a totally different story than the play-in. It's just a matter of playing well enough to be in the top 12 out of the 28. And you tell me that Octane, Slasher, Kenny, Pharaoh, those players, like I think from a talent standpoint alone, they obviously need some teamwork, but like when you just kind of have a sheer talent basis, like a sheer talent lineup like that, I think they would almost brute force their way and just overall be better than other teams, even if they didn't have the greatest chemistry, which seems to be the case now. But I want to kind of transfer over to another top team that we have in this group, Spacely's lineup, aka previously Straight Rippin'. Right, this team to me was a big question coming into this event. They obviously had looked very, very good in regards to Vegas. They looked very good in a number of different 2Ks. They were kind of topping and surprising a lot of people with names like Havoc and Nagafin kind of frontlining the roster. I was skeptical, I'll be totally honest. However, Havoc at this past tournament of Vegas, 1.23 overall KD, 1.76 S&D KD. I think for me at least, Chance, and I want to hear your thoughts, Havoc, I think if he can keep up this type of play, Spacely's team now has a designated kind of like big three lineup, and we talk about Mox, Major Maniac, and him. That's a scary team to be looking out for. My thing is, can Havoc keep it up? Because their search and destroy stats were unbelievable. I think their best three players overall, when you looked at their search and destroy stats, they were second to only Optic Gaming, who had Dashy, who finished off with like a 2.17 S&D KD, I think. So they're very good in search and destroy. They look like a solid lineup, but do you think they can kind of keep it up when it comes down to the play-in?
Yes, I do. To answer that question, to add to cool stats they have, there are 3 players from Vegas that were averaging more than 1 kill per round in search and destroy. It was Dashy, Alex, and then Havoc. So if Havoc is in that category of players, something is going right. And you kind of got it right with the big 3. I think if you were to look purely at stats, you would say that like Major Maniac and Havoc are the best 2, and then Mox. But then if you dig a little bit deeper and say, well, how well did they do in pool play versus bracket play when matches started to matter more? And Mox kicked it up a notch. When the competition got better, Mox got better with it. So he, I think, is just as good, if not better, than the other 2. And granted, the roles matter and whatnot, but you can't overlook anyone on this team. Spacely and Nagafen are obviously going to bring a lot to the table, especially in search and destroy. So I think they're going to be good. I will say I have fear for this team long-term, as they were one of the first teams to figure out how to play the game. They had that advantage going forward. That's something TK had last year in World War II. They figured out the game first. It worked for a while, but eventually they had to make a roster change because the talent just wasn't there. And there are players on this team like Nagafin and Spacely, amazing players. But I think if they want to keep up the success, those 2 players have to kick it up individually to start putting up those monster performances like Havoc's done, like Major Maniac's done, and Mox has done as well. But if those 2 players plateau and don't get any better, this team is still going to make the Pro League. I have zero question about that, but I don't think they crack much higher than top 8, maybe squeak out like a top 6. But if those 2 players get better, you go from top 8 to now this team's in the top 4, and they start taking some good scalps under their belt, wherever you put scalps. I have no idea. But I do think they're good for making the Pro League. I have zero fear, and this is a team I want to see in the Pro League because I think they're going to be fun to watch.
I think you bring up a really solid point about the ability for how the game starts off. And for me, in the last segment that I was having with Paradox, we were talking about Pool B. My big thing is that the first event of the year, it's always crazy. Granted, Black Ops 4, it was probably more in line with what will happen compared to, you talk about like Infinite Warfare, how crazy like ALG's run was, like Enigma 6 comes to the open bracket, destroys their entire pool, does not drop an entire map. Like things like that only happen at the first event most of the time. And whenever, like I said, it's kind of to me like a race. Like the beginning of the year, everyone's at the same line. Like everyone is exactly in line with each other, and you gauge their first 20 meters, they're going to be very close. Like you're going to have the fast sprinters who know the game well, but in turn, there's going to be teams who over time starting to kind of catch up, and teams like you said, start to plateau. I think Spacely's team definitely has the capabilities to possibly be one of those teams, but I think, like you said, it depends on whether or not that big three can kind of continue and whether or not extra pieces could be needed down the line is possible. But let's go ahead and talk about, speaking of roster moves, potentially in the future, a team that did actually have a few were Pittsburgh Knights, right? They have Theory and Lacefield, who they release in order to pick up Ricky from G2 and Saints from EG. Do you think this is overall a good pickup than the Pittsburgh Knights make? Like we said, we talked about the suffering, the loss of Theory, but Lacefield technically was their best overall KD type player. Was it worth it? And do you like the team better now or before?
It's very, like, all four players that were involved in the roster change are all players that will fit in incredibly well on certain teams and not be good at all on others. It's like, I look at it as like Theory for Ricky, that trade-off. Well, Ricky's probably going to get more kills. Izzy is like better position as Theory, not necessarily, but there are definitely some teams where if you have Theory on it, they are going to thrive. And generally, those are very kill-heavy teams. If Pittsburgh Knights wasn't that, if their other teammates weren't quite putting up the numbers, you want Ricky to come in and maybe take some of the reins. And then Lacefield for Saints, it's tough to say. I think historically, Saints has been the more talented player, but maybe not always the best teammate. So there are certain teams that Saints works better on, some teams that Lacefield works better in. And I don't know how they're going to work out. I don't know how the egos clash with any of the other players on the team. I don't know if there's different strategies that, Ricky and Saints were taking from their rosters, because Saints just plays top 8 and Pittsburgh Knights only plays top 16. So maybe he knows a little bit more than them and it's going to be confusing. So I think it's an interesting roster move, but it's not clear cut to me that it's better, but it definitely has the potential to be. So Pittsburgh Knights is probably the most interesting team in the entire group.
I agree. This is it's a team that definitely has a spotlight on it and kind of like a magnifying glass to see exactly like how the new players are going to perform when, like I said, like 2 out of the 5 are different. One thing I think is to be looking at for sure is I want to see GodRx and Pander. Like they are the 2 guys who, along with Parasite, stay on this team. Parasite was second in overall KD to Lacefield. And those 2 guys, to me, like, you're adding Ricky, who's not necessarily, from a stats point of view, expected to really slay with the best of them, but you add Saints, who can kind of be up in the air from time to time. And I think you need that third designated player. Will it be GodRx? Will it be Pander? Depending on the roles, that could be up to you. But I don't know, man. I think that to a point, I think Pittsburgh Knights, they need that third designated player. They might get it with Saints, but I think we need to see one of those 2 step up. Some of the young guns need to really kind of prove themselves to really be a top contender in this group. But outside of the top 3, when we look at the extra rosters, I know you kind of given your thoughts on it earlier, but if you were to kind of have a team that might make somewhat of an impact out of the bottom 4 that we have in Accelerate, Midnight, Overtime, and Mazer, is there one that maybe sticks off the page to you that could possibly maybe take a few maps, maybe even makes a few series close?
Accelerate can play spoiler. So Accelerate played against the Pittsburgh Knights, granted with the other roster at Vegas, and Pittsburgh Knights won 3-1. But the S&D went to a round 11. The Control went to a round number 5. So it was a very close series. The round 11 goes a different way. Boom, you see a game number 5. Who knows what happens? That final round of Control goes the other way. Maybe Accelerate comes out on top. They get the top 16 finish instead of Pittsburgh Knights, and we're talking about how interesting of a team they are. So they're right on that bubble. They're right on the borderline where I don't expect this team to make the top 2. I just don't see that happening. Maybe they score a win over one of the 3 teams above them. I don't think they get 2. It would be insane if it happened. I just don't see it. But this is a team that it's a wild card pick, but they might be able to make the Pro League. They are right on that bubble of breaking into the top 16. I just expect they're going to have to do it from the bracket. But if they do score a win against one of those top 3 teams, that's more than likely going to knock whichever team it is out of contention. So if they beat 100 Thieves comes out 3rd, then they have to fight through the double elimination bracket. And the same thing can be said for Spacely's team or Pittsburgh Knights. So Accelerate, eyes on them. If anyone is going to make something crazy in this pool, it's got to be those guys. It's got to be.
See, I get that, and I will totally kind of get your point of view when you talk about Accelerate. I'm also really excited to see Midnight play. Like, I'm a big fan of these guys on Midnight. I will say the biggest issue that I have is lack of experience in tournaments such of this nature. Like, you look at the guys on Accelerate, like you mentioned, all of them probably multiple times have made it through an open bracket and been in pool play. Not many for Midnight that you could probably mention. Like, probably one of the more known players back from the AW days on Justice is Envoy. A lot of people actually know Llama God's name as well from past. Then you've got three kind of younger guys who I've been more familiar with and commentating over kind of in the AM scene, Parzillion, Brack, and Jet Li. Brack to me is a super solid assault rifle player. I think they are still kind of a young team. They actually just formed ahead of this tournament, much like a lot of the other teams in this group have. I think they could make noise. I think the skill is there. My issue is going to be the experience. But regarding Group C here, Chance, your thoughts, top two teams, obviously the rest of them will go on to bracket play, so they're not done yet, but in your mind, which two teams stick off the page, and which ones are you having moving forward into the Pro League?
The most likely scenario is that the order they're currently in is going to be exactly how it ends up. What I will say, though, is from straight ripping 100 Thieves in Pittsburgh, I think if Pittsburgh makes top two, obviously they're automatically in the Pro League, but if they end up in third and they have to go through bracket play, I say it's 50-50 of whether or not they make it through and end up in the Pro League. So if 100 Thieves does, or if Pittsburgh Knights doesn't make those top two, it gets a lot tougher. If straight ripping 100 Thieves doesn't make it in those top two spots and has to go through the double elimination bracket, I still have full confidence in them to end up making the top four in that bracket to make Pro League. So straight ripping 100 Thieves, no matter what happens, I expect them to make it. Pittsburgh Knight, it's 50-50 unless they get that top two spot early. It's like the first 2 or 3 or 4 days, whatever it is, like just in that pool play era, that's where Pittsburgh Knights really has to show up for me.
Now, out of your top two, Spacely, 100T, I know this is a little bit more easy to predict, so I'm going to throw a hard question at you. Whenever they face off, who do you think wins that series?
Yes, I don't even care. Like that's my problem is like in my mind, they're both going to make it. So that match is just for entertainment purposes. If I have to pick, honestly, I think I'd go 100 Thieves. Well, no, actually, no, I take that back. I'd go straight ripping. I'd go straight ripping purely because of the S&D. If it was 100 Thieves worst game mode, straight ripping is their best. You imagine they get those 2 wins. They got to steal respawn, and it's not even like you're really stealing one. Like 100 Thieves' hard point was kind of average. So, yeah, I'll just pick straight ripping outright. There you go. Problem solved.